Hello everybody. Today I'm going to try and make a quick video regarding mud tools and what they look like and kind of what their general application are for. Realistically, most of you will find some basic tools that you like if you are doing handiwork or you're doing smaller jobs or anything else like that. But if you are trying to understand what most of these tools are used for, here's a quick video to try and help you out. Now, the first thing I'll start off with is the general thing that you'll see on most drywall sites or people who are trying to do drywall work or even just mild plaster work for other types of jobs. This is typically 13 inches by 13 inches, and this is called a drywall hawk. Now, this is what you'll throw your mud onto and work with a trowel, such as this smaller trowel right here, and you'll work the surface and work the mud. Now, just like setting for bricks or just like installing for anything else, you'll want a consistency. You'll be able to check it on the hawk, and if it doesn't stick to the trowel the right way, then you'll know that you're not working with mud that you necessarily want to work with, as it'll bubble, or it'll show air pockets on the wall a lot more because the consistency isn't right. And just like if it's too wet, the mud will fall right off the trowel back onto the hawk without making a mess on the floor, hopefully. Now, with the hawk, it's quite simple. Quite basic, but I'm going to make some room and move it out of the way for now. So starting with some of the smaller mud knives that are here, these are typically for drywall patching and for small, mild repairs that you're doing for all sorts of stuff. You could even use it for spackling for over top of nail heads, for moldings, for little mild blemishes on walls from where you staked in a picture frame hook or anything else like that. Now, typically, if you are going to embed for drywall tape, which I'll show you towards the end of the video here, when you're trying to do fire taping, you'll want something that is at least between 3 and 2.5 inches, and that's because the tape itself is typically around 2 inches. Now, I like 3, so that way I can control the entire bed of where I'm embedding the actual joint compound mud for the tape when it's embedded. It's just my preference. Everybody has their own. This one here is a minimalist approach. If you're really good, 2 inches will do it. If you're a little bit less confident with it, like I am, I'm not perfect at it, but I know how to at least make it so it doesn't peel off the wall after when it dries. So I'm a little ahead than most. Now, the 3 inches is what I like. The 2 inches is satisfactory, but either one of these I'll interchange between doing spackling or doing drywall tape for them. Now, as we move up, when you are doing your first coat of finish or you're trying to work a surface back into an edge, most people will use something between this size of a 6-inch knife or an 8-inch knife. Now, I keep 2 of these 6-inch, one to scoop out of the buckets that I keep my mud in, and one for the actual work. And one of these is actually bent, which is the one that I always use for my actual buckets, so that way I don't use it on the walls and accidentally have all sorts of smeared edges on the finish. It's just my preference. It's just how I operate. Everybody has a little bit different tools or a little bit different ways that they do things. This is the tools and the basics that I'm just trying to cover. So this larger knife here, when you're screeding across a larger surface, a 10-inch knife can be handy for tighter locations, for difficult locations, or just in general if you're doing a very small patch or covering a small joint. You may not need a larger knife, or you may need something that is this size for a tighter area, or it has other types of things that are interacting with it and you don't want to try and go past too far. Now, moving up to the largest knife that I personally own is a 12-inch knife, or a 14-inch knife, sorry. And this one will actually go over the size of the hawk that I have, which is 13 inches, and in general is quite good when you're doing drywall repairs. And the reason for it is when you've got it up here, you can check the wall to see how straight and level it is before you're actually coating any mud onto it. And if you find that this still has areas where it's needing to be smoothed out, can give you the widest berth of installation for mud. Now you can find 2 foot, 3 foot, 4 foot, all sorts of different knives for the high professionals who do this all day long and need to screed for large surfaces across walls for higher finished jobs. But most of the time, I don't have to do those types of things. Most of those times, I'll find other people to do those types of jobs. Now, not that I'm saying that you'd ever need these knives. This is an interior and an exterior corner trowel. And overall, Honestly, I don't really use these much. I kind of bought them just on a whim because they were relatively cheap when I picked them up, and I've used them a couple of times. For the most part, I just do it with 2 knives as I'm bedding the corners, and I find better control from it. It's all up to you if you really think that you need this, or you have to work a surface that needs a nice corner or an edge. Definitely, then all within your right to do so and use it. So it's just a tool that I kind of keep and use as needed. If I really have a corner that needs to be precise and will show really well, then I'll pull out this interior corner one a lot more than I will bring out the exterior corner one. And the last thing I'll talk about, other than the tapes themselves, is this stainless steel mud pan. Now, I typically use this for a product that when I have to build up a large void in the drywall, or it needs to be set quickly for the drywall itself to build up a lot of the thickness of the surface, typically coupled with the other product here of mesh tape. Now, mesh tape, I do not use that often, as I've tried to always use proper paper tape as much as possible. And I only use this whenever I'm using a product called Confill. Now, this has fiberglass and a fast set drywall compound mixed together that does an excellent job of drying in about 10 to 15 to maybe at most 20 minutes, depending on the depth that you're actually filling for it. You can mix it just as quick as you can set it into the wall, which is a beautiful product, but at the same time, it can be quite tedious if you have a lot of spaces that need to be filled to prep to install for large finishing mud over top of the space. This type of stuff mixed with the fiberglass compound mixed inside of it can allow you to build up a surface before you put on mud for finish. So if you got a tight timetable, or they're not concerned with fire safety for the job, which is very minimal for most jobs, or if you're planning on installing something else over top of it that brings it up to fire safe, then these types of products can be quite useful. Now, the last thing that I'll bring up is probably the most important thing that you can have for drywall repairs is drywall tape. Now, paper tape, most people will look at and shy away from because it can be quite difficult to install compared to the fiber mesh. The fiber mesh has an adhesive backside. It doesn't have to be embedded in mud. It doesn't require that when it's set that it doesn't bubble afterwards, so that way your finish above doesn't look terrible and bubble off too. And this is typically used for the reason of fire safety. When you're locking off 2 panel boards and you want fire separation, you're using this for a very good reason. This has its own applications, and this is pretty much the primary. There's newer products on the market that are paper thin, even thinner than this, and allow for a lot quicker adhesion and installs of clean finish mud over top afterwards almost the same day with using a fire safe brand. Now, paper tape, if you have the opportunity to work with and you have the chance to learn and practice your skills with, definitely learn it, because if you're ever doing drywall repairs at home or on a job site, this is pretty much what you're going to have to fight against in your early days of learning drywall and drywall mud. And once you master it, it becomes super easy. Hope that helps. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask.